Hello, my name is Nicole Hartley Bradford, and it's been a few weeks, maybe over a month, since I last recorded an episode of the Radical Honesty Edgecast for the Radical Honesty Project, where radical honesty meets the tools, distinctions, thought maps, processes of possibility management, or wait, that's not quite it. It's where my passion and mm, anger for radical honesty combined with the clarity and the thoughtware and the life experience I have since before and since using the distinctions, thought maps, tools, and processes of possibility management, which have really empowered me to grow out my inner structure, grow up my emotional body, my energetic body, prune, upgrade my thoughtware, and jack into my archetypal body more and more. And here we are. And what I want to talk about today is psychedelics. So, this is Nicole speaking honestly, radically honestly, about psychedelics. In particular, it'll be about mushrooms. All right. So, first of all, I have never done mushrooms, for the record. And a part of it comes from before I ever used any kind of mind altering substances. I was certainly I certainly picked up the thoughtware from my parents that being inebriated, I would say in any way, so being anything but sober was sketchy, was maybe not quite wrong or bad, but dangerous and questionable. And what are you doing? And do you really want to not have your full mental faculties? And starting when I was about 14 years old, I started experimenting with alcohol. Uh, Sorry, Mom, if you haven't heard this and you're finding out now, I stole from your dad's liquor cabinet. It was in the Lazy Susan under the corner cabinet in the kitchen. And I would come home from junior high school uh, scared, but not consciously scared, and wanting to be less inhibited so that I could be more interesting and I wouldn't just hide in the corner. So I would take a few swigs and put water back in the bottle. I don't know if you ever noticed. In any case, I did that, and I would go to school and I don't even know if it was the alcohol actually that I was under the influence of, or under the influence of giving my kind of authority to the alcohol. It's like, oh, I had this, so now I can be how I want to be. In any case, fast forward that, and before I had tried cigarettes when I was about 12 for the first time, and just thought it was utterly disgusting. And I had people that I was close to as a child who smoked. They were chain smokers who smoked in their homes. This was back in the 70s when that was still a thing. And the smell just grossed me out. So I didn't even ever try enough tobacco cigarettes to find out what the bodily sensations would be that make people want those things. I just didn't want it. I didn't want blah, blah, blah. Okay, so cigarettes, alcohol. Then later in my teenage years, I had the experience of being full out drunk and saying and doing things that I really regretted later. I remember going to a bush party and drinking, I don't know how much, probably not much. I was a pretty lightweight human being. And and even, yeah, like I said, even just drinking and being around people who were drunk, I already got like a contact effect. Just okay, the context is open honesty and maybe brutal honesty, because this is what alcohol did. It takes away the inhibitions, whatever the inhibitions are. And a lot of my inhibitions were my inhibitions were about not saying what I thought and not being open and honest about what I felt. So I remember being at a bush party, and I remember seeing the older sister of a girl in my class at school, and I was like, where's Monica? She at home, watching TV. This was my gremlin superiority. It's like, I'm out with the cool kids. I'm cool. She's not. And I remember being in McDonald's within a few weeks of seeing this sister, and being just like, she didn't want to serve me. She wouldn't serve me at McDonald's. She's like, no, you diss my sister. And I was just like, oh my God, I'm so devastated. I liked her sister so much. I loved her sister. And I didn't want to be on the outs with the big sister, who I respected. I didn't really know her well enough to know if I really loved her. In any case, there was that. And then I hung out with some of the baddest boys in town. They smoked, they smoked pot, they did drugs, they drank, they burnt. Like, I remember being camping with one of them when I was like 17 or 18, and a little vial of hash oil fell out of his pocket while he was looking in the water off the dock, and we spent the next hour trying to find this little vial of hash so that they could smoke it. And I was just like, I didn't want to find it. I didn't want them to get high. I knew what it was like to be around people who are really off. You have these amazing conversations, and the next morning they're like, they don't remember what happened. So that sucked, and I never liked that. So, and I just really liked being alive and sober. I liked to be, I didn't need to get high to appreciate music or the sunset, or to feel myself in my body. I could dance, I could sing, I could be in love, I could be talking, and I loved it. Mm. And then I started having kids. I started having kids, as you may or may not already know, when I was 21, 22. Wait, no, it was the year I turned 22, but I was still 21. I gave birth to my eldest son. And then it was like, I didn't want to contaminate this precious baby with mind altering substances. It's just, no, I didn't drink caffeine while I was pregnant. I didn't want to be around cigarette smoke or people who are smoking marijuana. And yeah, I just wanted him to be pure, uncontaminated. Mm. And his father really loved marijuana. And this became difficult for us, not because I had any problem with marijuana, but because he would go away from me to use it, and then our communication would not happen. Our being together would not happen. And his presence would not happen. So I wasn't blaming the pot, and I wasn't blaming him for using it. I just didn't like the effects. I didn't like the consequences. So yeah, and I tried to convey that, and I probably didn't use like accurate language, and so it became a conflict in our relational space. In any case, I still, I didn't pull any power moves as he continued to use it, as he grew it, as he harvested it, and as he made cookies with it one day. And it was his first time doing that. And after eating however many cookies he thought should change his state. He declared to me, he said, I must have done something wrong. These didn't work. And I that day had been doing a fast and cleansing my whole digestive system, including from the other end. And and I thought, great, these are my favorite kind of cookies, molasses ginger made with, organic blah blah blah. And I ate some cookies. And I got so high that I had basically an out of body experience. I was just flying in the cosmos, terrified that I was going to die and leave this child behind. And I remember just being in the fabric of the universe with this green-haired woman who told me that this was an accident on purpose and that it was all part of this me getting this download that all of the psychoactive substances on planet Earth were not being used according to the purpose for them existing any longer. That people were going back to them over and over and over and using them to create and recreate this mental, emotional state, when that was what their purpose was, to open people's doors to what was possible. And that my job, or part of what my job is on planet Earth, and part of why this accident had been allowed to happen, was for me to get this information that it's possible to become a human being who has intense, extraordinary, sensual experience of being alive on planet Earth, but through human relating. And not so much through human relating, but through doing processes together whereby you become someone who can access that kind of psychedelic aliveness with or without somebody. So I came out of that trip still mostly in the state of I didn't die. Okay, that's all I needed to know. And it took a long time before I kind of like was like, oh, what the things that happened during that trip. And some of the remarkable things were that one of the entities that this green woman entity, they introduced me to two main um, entities that represented the different psychoactive natural substances on planet Earth. One was these Siamese twins that were kind of wrapped around each other, and I was just like, okay. And then the other was this kind of bubble of bubbles. It was like a little Buddha baby, kind of happy, like glowing entity. And again, I was like, am I going to die? And I didn't know after coming out of that what I experienced, who that was supposed to be, what was that supposed to be. And a while later, I heard about ayahuasca, and I learned about ayahuasca, and I didn't really think much of it. And then I heard that there were two plants, and one was a vine that twined around the other one. I was like, oh my God, the Siamese twins. And then another time I was walking through a room where people were watching a movie called DMT, the spirit molecule. I didn't know anything about DMT except that some people could make it in a lab and you take a little hit and it's like you get this really intense experience. And on the screen was this Buddha baby molecule, like cluster of bubbles, which was like the DMT molecule. And I was just like, okay. And so I learned some things about it. And I learned that DMT is naturally produced in the brain. And one of the things the green woman had told me was one of the reasons that you are good for this job is that you have that. And And it was kind of like, okay, whatever. I don't really know what you're talking about, but when I consider that I somehow am able to access kind of awe and wonder without taking substances, like to a high degree, makes me think maybe this is why. I've never tested that. I've never had a blood test for what my DMT levels are. I've never learned if such a blood test exists or such a test exists, or like, I don't know, saliva test or what, I don't know, scans. In any case, this prevails, this sense of I don't need psychoactives, I don't want psychoactives, because I can do it myself. And especially since learning how to hold space for emotional healing processes and basic inner navigation skills in in the way that happens in possibility management, I just have had even more like, yeah, this works for me. I don't need mushrooms. I don't want mushrooms. I don't need pot. I don't want alcohol. In fact, when I've had alcohol, and I did try some other marijuana edibles. It's been ages, like years, but I did try them, and what ended up happening was that I just had like 3 hours of like a really great day. And then I started to feel all the feelings that I hadn't felt, like kind of all at once. It was like a bulldozer. I didn't feel. And then it was like, okay, now I have all this catching up to do about the feelings you didn't feel while you were stoned. So yeah, and with alcohol, I actually, well, I'm really committed to radical honesty. So my inhibitions are something that I handle rather than giving it to a substance to handle. I have also at times, especially before I found possibility management, I I questioned whether my I don't need it, I can do this myself was my way of avoiding doing something that would actually be transformational, because I was just too scared to lose control or whatever. And I took that seriously. I looked at that fear and I was like, okay. And there was a time in my life, I think it was about 2018 or maybe 2019, where I was like, you know what? I am going to try this. I'm going to try mushrooms so that I know what it's like, and so that I get whatever effects I actually don't have access to, because I've been using this, like, I don't need it thoughtware. And so I arranged to have mushrooms with a group of friends that I trusted a lot, and I arranged it a couple of times, and each time, well, twice. The first time, I don't remember if it was this way around, but the timing was going to be during the day, and then it changed so that then the timing was going to be at night, and that meant I was going to be up all night, and I was not up for being up all night because I had commitments during the next couple of days and I didn't want to be sleep deprived. Another time, it was that I got a message from my youngest daughter, who was like less than 10 at the time, or wait, well, less than 13 at the time, saying that her dad was going to was looking for someone for her to be with in an urgent situation, and could I do it? And I was like, oh yeah, time with my daughter was a high priority. I didn't get enough time with her, and so I opted out of taking mushrooms to have time with her. And it just seemed like the universe was, kind of being like, okay, you want to take mushrooms, but no. And I wasn't like, oh yeah, no, I don't have to take them. It wasn't like that. It was more like, okay, I'm going to choose this way. I still want, I don't want to be one of these people who says how something is or isn't, but has never had direct experience. So and I've been on the lookout ever since for, I've met a lot of people since I've been up here on the Sunshine Coast, and I look at them and I'm like, oh, they take mushrooms, they do the mushroom thing. maybe they're going to be the person that I do it with. But I'm also really turned off by when it's mushrooms that are being used to create these experiences of like radical unity with the universe and supercharged sensual senses experience. And I'm just like, I don't want to, what's that word? Like when you outsource, I don't want to outsource my lived experience to a substance that I might not have access to one day. And also with the DMT side of things, I started having another fear because I had read that if you use certain substances that your brain starts to be like, oh, okay, we won't make it so much. I don't even remember if that was someone's opinion or hypothesis or if it was written as this is what we've discovered. So I think it was a legit kind of discovery of this is how it goes, and I'm not 100% sure. I'll look that up actually. Okay. Yeah, and it might not have been about DMT, it might have been about other like opiates, naturally occurring opiates, and other brain chemistry like dopamine and serotonin and what's the other one? Well, oxytocin is one that I'm especially interested, which, kind of pointed to the one substance addiction that I did have, which was to build my own oxytocin supply, like to amp up my oxytocin supply through relating, through especially sensual and sexual relating. So, wow, I mean, I see the research territory becoming more clear in front of me. Do I have anything else I want to be radically honest about what I think and what I feel about using psychoactives? Yeah, what really comes is this sadness about how it goes when people are outsourcing the deliciousness of transformational work done in relational spaces and extraordinary relating in relational spaces, and not building that capacity and ability together. It's like, I mean, I have to go to sleep to have dreams. I mean, I can go to sleep with somebody else and we can both have dreams, but it's like, why would I, if I can do profound transformational healing work in relational spaces or by myself with a plant medicine, why would I choose with a plant medicine when I can do it in a relational space where intimacy is built and continues to be built over time, and then each of our skill and ability to handle uh, like when conflict buds in our relational space because we did this work together. I just, yeah, and I know I've heard some people say this is how they access their underworld. I'm like, there are so many doorways to access your underworld so that you can have an underworld journey and come up and have something to bring to the village. And this is also missing, I find in my world anyway. I have literally hundreds of friends who go on regular psychedelic journeys, and I don't get to hear the gold they bring back. I'm not receiving their gold from the village. So I don't know, maybe this is more of a cultural thing because they're, I don't know, hiding drug use or psychedelics use according to like this thing, it's bad, it's wrong, and they think that I'm on that team. I can't quite tell. In any case, I think that's it. I mean, I'm looking in my miniatures little shelf here, and I got this little red mushroom with the white dots on it that is, the Santa Claus mushroom. And I have a dear friend who was telling me just the other day that they've been using that and microdosing with that, and yeah, I I don't yet quite know how to say, like, dude, you can have that without mushrooms. You can have that without, I don't know, without all the kind of, I'm gonna say technology. Like, I get it's Gaian technology. I get it. And yet there's this there's this technology. There's the relational technologies can be used to create, so many people take it because otherwise they get kind of depressed or under the weather or just, lethargic, or what's that word when people stop doing things they want to do? They get procrastinate. It's like, I'm like, I got tools for that. It's so cool. It's so fun and it's so easy and it's magical and it's like, oh, it's kind of like, why did you like outsource magic to mushrooms when you can become a source of magic as a human being by, yeah, relocating your point of origin and learning to come from from the archetypal resource of magic as a sorcerer, as a witch, as a Gaian human being. And I'm not judging. I really am not. I and I'm a bit mad. I'm like, this is possible. Will you not try it with me? Yeah. And if the answer is no, cool. I Yeah, and I can't help but feel sad about that because of the loss of intimacy. While people are off doing their psychedelic journeys, it takes time out of of creating intimacy together in this radically alive, extraordinary, magical way. And there's lots of ways to be in the world, and I don't want to be a person who people are like, oh, she says that, so I should do it. It's not about that. Okay, I'll leave it there. Thank you for listening. Any thoughts and feelings you want to share, I would love to hear. Goodbye for now.